Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. Happy Saturday to you and your family. We're taking a quick peek here at Bitcoin. Just kind of jumping into some detailed back-end stuff here today. Keeping it fairly brief. Be sure you stick around to the end, of course, so you kind of get a better picture on what's going on this weekend. Because obviously we're seeing a massive dump here in the last 4 hours. A lot of that comes to the fact that we retest this support level here and broke. And obviously we just had too much of a resistance there at that 29,800 mark. Good news is we took profits as a community and we're able to get all of our trades closed for the weekend, so we're really happy about that. Everything is in profit, so congratulations on 3 or 4 successful short trades and a Bitcoin long throughout the week last week. All right, so what we want to look at is a few things. Let's just jump right into High Block Capital, kind of go into the details here and see what's going on. Couple of good things, couple of bad things. So let's talk about that. First of all, longs getting liquidated, big surprise. We're not really too unfamiliar with that, right? That's a pretty common characteristic, unfortunately, but that is standard when you got a lot of longs averaged in the 29,000 range and we dropped 28.4, 28.3, somewhere in that range. So again, that happened, it's a thing. One thing that's kind of good here is open interest is increasing. Okay, now this is nice because this concurrent with a lot of bids tells us there's a lot of buying pressure in the 85,000 range. Sorry, 28,000 range. 85, that would be nice. Yeah, so 28,500 effectively is that range that we're in right now. 28.5 to 29. That's essentially what we're seeing here right now with a lot of bids. So that's a positive sign. Open interest up. So is the bid-ask spread there ratio. I think that really tells us a lot about the fact that the price should stay in this range, unless, of course, that changes over the next few days. Keep in mind, this is a weekend, lower volume, higher volatility. Okay. That being said, take a quick look at that volatility. We can see a lot of closed positions here at 29,500. These were probably more recent longs closing their entry targets, as well as some shorts possibly as well. So what that really just tells us is that we have a potential support level here at the low 28,000 range. There's some open levels there, essentially, basically trades that haven't been executed yet. That's essentially why we have liquidation levels there when the price hasn't touched there yet, is because of the fact that even though the price wicked down to that area, a lot of positions are like, okay, I don't want to take a long here, I don't want to take a short here. That is essentially closed. So cool thing is this kind of tells us a little bit more about the fact that 20,000 and 29.5 is the range that we're working within for the moment. Now, when it comes to open interest, this is where it gets interesting, no pun intended, but also, I guess, kind of works out naturally there. When we take a look at the current data here, we can see a lot of longs are hedged right here. The most amount of volume is right here at this point, as well as some longs also at 28.7. So that's positive and or negative, depending on how you look at it, right? Because a lot of longs got liquidated, but in truth, they feel that the price action at 28.6 is a good price. I would kind of agree with that, considering our open interest is higher, as well as the fact that we have a lot more bids than asks right now. So that leads me to believe we shouldn't see much lower this weekend. We can also see a similar scenario here too, where shorts are hedged at 28.6. Okay, so let's take a look at the charts and kind of see what that looks like and kind of generally understand what's going on here. So just really quick here, what we want to do is kind of update this here, because obviously we see this ascending wedge pattern, right? Price retests this level multiple times, breaks through, comes back down to test as a support did not hold, continues lower. Okay, so that really kind of just nullifies this ascending wedge and that support level at 29,200 and just kind of reaffirms that probably as a resistance level now. Okay, now we'll update our Fibonacci retracement levels to kind of reflect that, but just know we have a support channel here in this range. We could even extend that over here, maybe working as a resistance as well, because we had a lot of trouble getting through this range. Once we did, it worked as a support level. Okay, so some positive stuff there in that sense. What we want to look at though is big picture stuff here. Okay, so let's take a quick look at CME and kind of see if there's any gaps here that haven't been filled yet. And we can see here at this point that no, nothing's happened yet. You got to keep in mind, this is closed, right? It's a weekend, so CME futures are closed. The price action left off right here at 29.7. So there's going to be a pretty significant gap if the price action, just say, opens tomorrow on Sunday, and we're at like this 28,000 range. There's going to be a significant gap that will need to get filled. Okay, so just keep in mind, we're currently in that gap right now for the moment, and it will also need to get filled. Another thing to recognize too is, and you can't see this on this charts here, but this gap right here previously did get filled because we came all the way down to 28,400. Okay, so this, we can call this here all satisfied and good to go. So we'll go ahead and just change the color in this guy. And then of course, switch the other so we can kind of see roughly what that's looking like. Okay, so this guy here needs to turn red because that is going to be a gap that we haven't filled yet. All right. So we'll see, of course. It's a little premature, but generally speaking, we have this pretty big gap from 28.6 to 29.7 that will need to be filled eventually. So there's a great chance if that isn't filled in the next 24 hours, that over the next 72 to the rest of the week, if you will, then we're definitely going to see that get filled. Okay, so just something to kind of think about. Bitcoin dominance, well, not much to really say here. Bitcoin dominance is coming down a little bit, but it's still overall increasing, testing that 49% mark. As long as we stay in this range here, we'll continue to see similar activity, right? Where the price is consistently range bound. Altcoins are not sure really which way to go. They're going to slowly increase, but dramatically decrease. So you just got to keep in mind that anytime there's a correction from Bitcoin right now being on the edge of potential disaster, then we can kind of just agree in the sense that altcoins are going to get hit harder than usual. Okay, they're like 2 to 3x of Bitcoin right now to the downside. Some are 2 to 3x to the upside, like Solana, for example. We caught that long here recently, and if you're part of our community, you'll know that that was a nice, healthy, long position that we took. Oh, we took a short with OP as well last week. We hit all targets there this morning, but Solana and Bitcoin, we got 35% and 20% from both those trades. Thankfully, Solana was really quick and easy, good 18 hours, 35%, right? So we just caught that nice wick up there from yesterday, and of course, the trailing stop closed it out for us in profit. But again, I'm mentioning that because it's important to recognize that when it comes to altcoins, they're very a majority of them are suffering right now. Okay, and you can kind of obviously see this here. It's pretty much red across the board. There's very few winners today, you could say. All right, unless you were shorting, of course, and unless you got in at the top, you probably would have missed that little candle wick down today. Other than that, let's go ahead and take a quick look here at this scenario here. This is kind of an interesting one. This is the Bitcoin US dollar index here, just kind of giving us good understanding of the overall volume for USD, and we can kind of see that in general, there's a lot of support at this range here at 28.5 to 28.7, okay, because you can see that previously has worked as a strong resistance, so we can kind of expect that to work as a support level. We also have an ascending trend here still that's holding upwards. So positivity here to me in this sense, but just know that we are still in the neutral / bearish side of things, and if we break below 28.5, that's when things kind of get a little more, I wouldn't say scary, but a little more concerning, if you will. Okay, all right, so that is kind of that in which we're done with all that stuff. So okay, so let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Let's take a look at the daily and work our way down and kind of just identify that, hey, this is a weekend, we have lower volume, pretty standard stuff there. You're going to find higher volatility because of it. When it comes to Fibonacci retracement levels, let's go ahead and kind of draw some new fibs here and kind of see what that's going to look like for us as well. We can kind of see that we did lose that ascending trend, and obviously we'll need to redraw some trend lines, but we can kind of tell that that is the case right now. We are testing 50 on the RSI. This is extremely important. So this has been a notoriously strong support level for Bitcoin in the recent past. So we got to recognize that with us testing that, there is a potential support level there at 28.5, 28.6. As we've already identified with other support ranges too, right? So that bearish to neutral situation there, we are right on the edge, okay? So to me, I feel like we're going to probably hold, considering we have a CME gap to get filled throughout the next week sometime. So I do feel like a long position would be warranted here in the relative near future. Also can see here that we had a rejection off the MACD once more. Every time we try to converge in the MACD, it gets rejected, okay? So that's why you also always want to ensure that the price fully converges first before you take a position in that direction, depending on if you're doing long or short, but obviously more importantly, if you have a trade that's either swing trade or day trade, right? Because swing trading, this is more of a swing trader's tool. You want to identify this obviously as a day trader too, but generally speaking, if you're going to take a longer term trade, the overall MACD convergence is pretty important, okay? We're not converging yet, so just know that we haven't broken through that level. Speaking of which, we also have the support level here at the 50-day simple moving average. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but the price wicked down to that level, roughly 29.5, and bounced back. Obviously, we wicked all the way down to 28.3, but the 28,500 mark is essentially a good support. Okay, so we got that nice little support averaging itself out higher, and it should work Bitcoin into a type of wedge here, whereas the price action will inevitably break to the upside. So I don't know if you can kind of see that, but we are working ourselves into an ascending type of wedge, and the more likely we are to break to the upside there. So 29.5, closing above 29.5 would be huge. That's a pretty big deal. I don't think we're going to see that this weekend, but I think next week we will, based on the simple fact that we have that CME gap that will probably need to get filled here soon. Okay, so good stuff there. Also looking at the 4 hour, we want to identify a couple of things. We're below all moving averages there. That's not fantastic. That is a resistance. Stochastic is still coming down, and as I typically like to mention, we want to wait for the price to start swinging upwards before we bother with that. Same thing with the RSI here too. We're now under 50 on the RSI, therefore working as a resistance. So until we break soundly above this level, I think there's a good chance that we'll probably see further downside. So I try not to FOMO in right now. I have some limit orders set myself at every specific dollar amount. So I have 20,000, 28,500, and then of course 27,500 and 27,000. So just every 500 essentially for Bitcoin to get filled on the way down. And I'm hoping that we do, honestly, just to be able to fill my bag. But the bottom line here is that we have a MACD divergence too, and even though a long position seems very juicy right now, it does also have some risk. Okay, so just keep in mind, if you're going to take a long position right now, make sure you have some tight targets there and a fairly loose stop loss, if you will, which sounds crazy, but you want to kind of have that in this environment right now, because these candle wicks up and down. I mean, we think about this here, what no less than 16 hours ago, the price was 5% higher. That's a pretty significant candle wick, especially if you're using 10 to 20x leverage, okay? So please, please, please be very careful with your leverage. We use low position sizing to kind of offset higher leverage. So it works out fairly well if you're not going too crazy. Try not to FOMO in. You see a lot of these other folks on Twitter that just do, rake it in the cash. They are getting lucky once in a while. You can get lucky often, but when you get unlucky and you have that kind of leverage, it can be a really, really terrible thing. It's hard to walk away from. So please be careful with that. Okay, speaking of Twitter, let's jump over there really quick here. We are having a giveaway right now for our Crypto Cash Premium membership. Every week, we're going to be providing an opportunity to go ahead and benefit from that. So if you could, come on over here, like, subscribe, retweet, I think it's called, and go ahead and jump on there. More importantly, just follow us, honestly. It's really helpful to be able to grow the channel and get you some notifications enabled so you can kind of stay abreast on a lot of really cool stuff that we're doing. Not only profit targets, but also some extremely important stuff coming to the channel and technical fundamental data, things that are really important for you to recognize and see and to be part of. Okay, so thanks again so much to a lot of our followers from Pepe and Wojak, as well as Algorand. You guys are awesome. Greatly appreciate all the support. Very last thing I want to summarize here with is the 1 hour. Okay, so let's talk about that and close it out. We want to kind of identify a few things. First of all, we're overextended to the downside. We were overextended to leading into this support level here. If you recall, I went ahead and removed that just kind of to give an example, but we had this support level here at this 29,250 range, okay, where the price action blew through that resistance level, filled our profit target for Bitcoin, right? Comes back down here, and then it inevitably averages itself out right here at this level for 2 or 3 hours. Overextended, should have bounced, but instead it dumped really hard. And again, keep in mind, low volume on the weekends causes these things to happen a lot easier because there's not a ton of selling pressure or buying pressure to be able to offset that. Okay, so keep in mind that has a lot to do with the weekend, but it also has to do with the fact that we are retesting that level and broke down below that support. So that is a new resistance, 29,250, I would say is a good resistance level. So all that being said here on the hourly, we are overextended to the downside. We shouldn't experience much more. We should probably consolidate sideways at 28.5 to 28.7 and kind of essentially just stay in that range. That would make sense for the remainder of the weekend, but again, stranger things can happen due to the fact that the weekends are extremely volatile. So please be careful when you take a trade on a weekend. Furthermore, too, last thing to note is Ichimoku cloud, we broke soundly below the cloud. So this is extremely bearish territory, basically saying if you have a short position open, you're better off leaving it open until we have another 12 or 24 hours of sideways action. If the price is still at the same exact point here tomorrow, I'd recommend closing based on the fact that we could fill that CME gap and the price could come up. But for right now, even though I know it seems like a juicy target to get in, there's a good chance we could see further downside. There's a lot of bearish momentum right now. And that is never a great thing on a weekend because strange things can happen with the low volume and extra volatility. I hope this made sense, and I greatly appreciate you watching all the way through. If you haven't become a community member, CryptoCash.tech is a site where you can learn to become a better trader. We do have discounts for third world countries, military, and students as well. So be sure to direct message me if you have any questions there. We have a questions section on our homepage as well if you're curious on how to reach us. We do look forward to working with you. Thank you again so much for joining us here. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow the whole 9 yards. Do appreciate you. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.